In the shadowed canyons of the untamed West, where the wind howls like a ghost chasing its own regrets, there once roamed a man whose name alone could silence a saloon full of hardened gunslingers. They called him Black Jack Harlan, a ruthless cowboy whose eyes burned with the fire of 1,000 forsaken sunsets, his soul scarred by the relentless pursuit of vengeance and the bitter taste of betrayal. But on this fateful night, under a blood-red moon that hung low over the dusty town of Redemption Ridge, Black Jack found himself face to face with innocence incarnate, the sheriff's virgin teen daughter, Eliza Mayfield. Her hair cascaded like golden rivers in the lamplight, her eyes wide with the untainted wonder of youth, untouched by the cruelties that had forged men like him into weapons of fate. He hadn't come to this godforsaken place for love, no, he rode in on a storm of fury, seeking the man who had stolen everything from him years ago. Yet, as he stood there in the flickering glow of the sheriff's porch, his calloused hand gripping the revolver at his hip, something stirred within him, a whisper of humanity long buried under layers of dust and despair. Eliza stepped out into the night, her simple cotton dress fluttering like a fragile flag in the breeze, drawn by the sound of hooves thundering in the distance. She didn't know then that this stranger's words would unravel her world, making her cry rivers of sorrow before begging for more, for the truth that both damned and redeemed them all. The town of Redemption Ridge nestled in a valley carved by ancient rivers now dry as bones, a place where lawmen like Sheriff Harlan Mayfield clung to order amid the chaos of outlaws and opportunists flooding the frontier. Mayfield was a towering figure, his badge gleaming like a false promise, but his heart had grown cold after losing his wife to a fever that swept through like divine judgment. He raised Eliza alone, shielding her from the saloon's raucous laughter, the gamblers' sly grins, and the whispers of men who saw her budding beauty as a prize to be claimed. She was 18 summers old, on the cusp of womanhood, her days filled with tending the garden behind their modest home, reading faded books of poetry by candlelight, and dreaming of a life beyond the endless horizon. But dreams have a way of twisting into nightmares in the West, where every shadow hides a secret and every stranger carries a storm. Black Jack Harlan wasn't just any stranger, he was a legend whispered around campfires, a man said to have outdrawn the devil himself in a poker game gone wrong. His face was etched with scars from knife fights and bar brawls, his black duster coat stained with the blood of those who'd crossed him. He had ridden into town under the cover of dusk, his horse lathered in sweat, drawn by rumors that the sheriff held the key to his past, a past involving a robbery gone awry, a brother betrayed, and a fortune lost in the sands. As he tied his mount to the hitching post outside the sheriff's office, Eliza emerged, her curiosity piqued by the solitary figure silhouetted against the dying light. "Who goes there?" she called, her voice trembling like a leaf in the wind, but laced with the quiet strength her father had instilled. Black Jack turned, his gaze locking onto hers, and in that moment, the air thickened with unspoken tension, the kind that builds like thunderheads on the prairie, promising a deluge of emotion that would flood their souls. He approached slowly, his boots crunching on the gravel path, each step echoing the heartbeat of destiny drawing near. Eliza felt a chill despite the warm night air, her innocence sensing the darkness that clung to him like smoke from a dying fire. "Miss," he rasped, his voice gravelly from years of whiskey and silence, "I ain't here to cause trouble, least not for you. But your pa, he and I got unfinished business." She tilted her head, her blue eyes searching his face for truth amid the shadows. What she didn't know was that Black Jack wasn't just any outlaw, he was the sheriff's long-lost brother, Jack Mayfield, presumed dead after a stagecoach ambush a decade prior. The robbery had been their plan, a desperate bid for wealth to escape the poverty that had claimed their parents, but treachery from within had left Jack wounded and alone, his identity shed like snakeskin as he wandered the wilderness, forging himself into the ruthless Black Jack Harlan. Now, returned like a specter from the grave, he sought not just revenge but redemption, though he dared not admit it even to himself. Eliza, unaware of the blood tie that bound them all in a web of fate, felt an inexplicable pull toward this stranger, her heart fluttering like a caged bird sensing freedom. "My father's inside," she said softly, gesturing to the door where lamplight spilled out like liquid gold. "But he don't take kindly to unannounced visitors, especially ones lookin' like they've danced with death." Black Jack's lips curled into a wry smile, the first crack in his armored facade, revealing a glimpse of the man he once was, charming, poetic, before the world had hardened him. He leaned closer, the scent of leather and gunpowder enveloping her, and whispered words that would ignite the spark of mystery. "Darlin', death ain't the dancer, it's the music we all sway to. And tonight, that tune's callin' your name too." As the night deepened, the stars above Redemption Ridge twinkled like distant witnesses to the unfolding drama, their light piercing the veil of secrecy that shrouded the town. Inside the sheriff's home, the air was thick with the aroma of stew simmering on the stove, a simple meal Eliza had prepared earlier, but now forgotten as tension coiled like a rattlesnake ready to strike. Sheriff Mayfield emerged from his study, his hand instinctively resting on his holster, eyes narrowing at the sight of the intruder. "State your business, stranger," he growled, his voice booming with authority honed from years of upholding the law in a lawless land. Black Jack stood tall, unflinching, his gaze shifting between the sheriff and Eliza, who hovered nearby, her curiosity morphing into a quiet dread. "Business? It's more like family, Harlan," Black Jack replied, the use of the sheriff's first name hanging in the air like a noose. The room fell silent, save for the ticking of an old grandfather clock, each second amplifying the mystery. Eliza's brow furrowed, sensing the undercurrent of familiarity, but unable to grasp its depth. The sheriff's face paled, recognition dawning like a storm breaking, but he masked it with feigned indifference. "I don't know you, and I don't take to riddles. Leave now, or I'll have you in irons." But Black Jack wasn't one to back down. He had crossed deserts and dodged bullets to reach this moment. He turned to Eliza, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that sent shivers down her spine. "Ask your pa about the Black Mesa heist, little one. Ask him why he left his own kin to rot in the dust while he pocketed the gold and built this life on lies." The words landed like bullets, piercing the facade of peace, and Eliza's world began to crack, tears welling in her eyes as the first threads of mystery unraveled, pulling her into a vortex of emotion she never knew existed. The confrontation escalated in the dimly lit parlor, where shadows danced on the walls like ghosts of the past come to haunt the present. Sheriff Mayfield lunged forward, his fist clenched, but Black Jack sidestepped with the grace of a predator, his revolver drawn in a blur. "Not in front of the girl," he warned, his tone laced with a surprising tenderness that belied his ruthless reputation. Eliza stepped between them, her small frame a barrier against the tide of violence, her voice quivering but resolute. "Stop. Father, who is this man? What heist?" The sheriff's shoulders sagged, the weight of buried secrets pressing down like the unforgiving sun on parched earth. He sank into a chair, his eyes distant, reliving the nightmare of that fateful day on Black Mesa, where ambition had turned brothers against each other. Jack and Harlan Mayfield, orphaned young, had dreamed of striking it rich, joining a gang to rob a gold shipment bound for the railroads, but greed poisoned the well. Harlan, seeing an opportunity, had double-crossed the group, shooting Jack in the chaos and fleeing with the loot, believing his brother dead. He reinvented himself as the upright sheriff, marrying a kind woman who bore him Eliza before passing too soon, leaving him to raise her in the shadow of his guilt. Black Jack, surviving by sheer will, had clawed his way back from the brink, his heart blackened by betrayal, vowing to reclaim what was his, not just the gold, but the life stolen from him. Now, as he revealed fragments of the truth to Eliza, her tears flowed freely, the innocence of her world shattering like glass under a boot heel. "He ain't your uncle or some distant kin," Black Jack continued, his voice softening as he saw her pain. "He's my blood, and that makes you part of this twisted tale." The mystery deepened, emotions swirling like a dust devil, drawing Eliza closer to the outlaw despite the danger, her heart begging for more of the story that both wounded and captivated her. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the shutters as if nature itself conspired to heighten the drama unfolding within. Eliza wiped her tears, her gaze locked on Black Jack, drawn to the raw honesty in his eyes, a stark contrast to the sheltered life her father had imposed. "Tell me everything," she pleaded, her voice a mix of fear and fascination, the beg for more escaping her lips like a prayer. Black Jack hesitated, glancing at the sheriff, who sat defeated, his head in his hands. It started in the Badlands, he began, his words weaving a tapestry of the past, rich with the poetic cadence of a man who had stared into the abyss. The brothers, inseparable in youth, had roamed the territories, their dreams fueled by tales of fortune and freedom. But the heist on Black Mesa changed everything, a moonless night, the clatter of hooves, the gleam of gold crates under torchlight. Gunfire erupted when the betrayal unfolded, Harlan's shot rang out, echoing Jack's cry of anguish as he fell into the ravine, left for dead. Days blurred into nights of delirium, Jack surviving on rainwater and sheer rage, his body mending but his spirit fracturing. He adopted the name Black Jack Harlan, a moniker born from the blackjack game where he won his first horse after recovery, and the Harlan winds that carried him through storms. As he spoke, Eliza's sobs subsided into rapt attention, her imagination painting vivid pictures of the wild pursuits, the lonely campfires where Black Jack plotted his return, the close calls with bounty hunters who mistook him for a ghost. The tension built with each revelation, the air charged with the electricity of unspoken desires, Eliza seeing in him not just a ruthless cowboy, but a kindred soul yearning for connection, while Black Jack felt the ice around his heart melting under her gaze, a dangerous thaw in the desert of his existence. As the hours stretched into the deep of night, the story unfolded like a river carving through stone, revealing layers of emotion buried beneath the surface. Black Jack described his wanderings, the saloons where he drowned his sorrows in rotgut whiskey, the duels fought under scorching suns, each victory hollow without the brother he once trusted. He spoke of women who had crossed his path, fleeting shadows offering temporary solace, but none touched the purity he saw in Eliza, a reminder of what life could have been without the stain of betrayal. The sheriff interjected sporadically, his voice hoarse with remorse, admitting the guilt that had haunted him, the gold long spent on building the town, on giving Eliza a chance at a better life. "I thought you were gone, Jack," he murmured, tears streaking his weathered face. "I built this on your grave, but it was my soul I buried." Eliza, caught in the crossfire of their shared history, felt her world expand and contract in equal measure, the mystery of her father's past colliding with the allure of this outlaw's tales. She begged for more details, her innocence giving way to a burgeoning awareness, tears of sorrow mixing with those of empathy. Black Jack obliged, his narration poetic, rhythmic, evoking the vastness of the prairies, the whisper of sagebrush, the cry of coyotes under starlit skies. He recounted a pivotal moment in his exile, cornered in a canyon by lawmen. He had escaped by sheer cunning, but not without losing a piece of himself, a locket with their mother's portrait, the last tether to family. That loss fueled his return, not for vengeance alone, but for closure, for the chance to confront the man who had become a stranger. As the tale progressed, tension mounted like a gathering storm, Eliza's hand unconsciously reaching for Black Jack's, a touch that sent sparks through both, igniting a forbidden spark in the darkness. The revelation came like a thunderclap, shattering the fragile peace of the room. Black Jack pulled a faded letter from his coat pocket, yellowed with age, its edges frayed from countless readings. "This," he said, his voice trembling for the first time, "is from our ma, written before she passed. She begged us to stick together, but you chose gold over blood." He handed it to Eliza, who unfolded it with reverent care, her eyes scanning the elegant script that spoke of love, hardship, and hope for her sons. But as she read, a deeper twist emerged. The letter mentioned a child, a secret Harlan had kept. Eliza's mother wasn't just a kind woman, she had been involved in the heist's aftermath, harboring the gold briefly before her death. More shocking, Black Jack revealed he had tracked leads suggesting Eliza wasn't Harlan's daughter by blood, but the offspring of a union between Harlan's late wife and a mysterious figure, perhaps even tied to the gang. No, the true shock. Black Jack had discovered evidence that Eliza was his own daughter, conceived in a moment of passion with Harlan's wife during a brief reunion before the betrayal, a secret affair born of desperation. The room spun for Eliza, her tears flowing anew as the mystery peaked, her identity crumbling like sandstone under rain. "How can this be?" she cried, begging for more proof, more words to make sense of the chaos. Black Jack knelt before her, his ruthless facade cracking completely, revealing the vulnerable man beneath. "I didn't know until recently, darling. A dying gang member's confession led me here. You're mine, and that's why I came, not just for revenge, but to claim what's left of my heart." The emotional torrent that followed washed over them like a flash flood, sweeping away pretenses and leaving raw truth in its wake. Eliza, reeling from the revelation, felt a maelstrom of feelings: betrayal toward the man she called father, confusion about her origins, and an inexplicable draw to Black Jack, whose stories had awakened something deep within her. She begged him to continue, to paint the full picture of the life she might have had, tears streaming as she grappled with the dark legacy now hers. Black Jack obliged, his voice a soothing balm amid the storm, describing imagined futures where brothers reconciled, where he could have been the father she deserved, teaching her to ride, to shoot, to navigate the wilds with the poetry of the stars as guide. The sheriff, broken, confessed his sins fully, admitting the affair's knowledge had driven him to the betrayal, jealousy fueling his shot that night. As dawn crept over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of redemption, the trio sat in exhausted silence, the mystery resolved but the emotions lingering like smoke after a gunfight. Black Jack rose to leave, his mission complete, but Eliza clutched his arm, her plea raw: "Don't go. Tell me more, about us, about what comes next." He paused, the ruthless cowboy softened by love's unexpected grip, and in that moment, the West's harsh legend gave way to a tentative hope, a family forged anew from the ashes of deceit. Yet, the resolution carried a lingering moral, etched into their souls like brands on cattle: the past, no matter how buried, always rises like a phoenix from the dust, demanding reckoning. Black Jack chose to stay, not as an outlaw, but as a guardian, helping rebuild what betrayal had torn asunder. Eliza, her innocence evolved into wisdom, embraced the complexity of her heritage, her tears of sorrow transforming into those of cathartic release. The sheriff, seeking atonement, stepped down, allowing the town to heal under new law. In the end, the ruthless cowboy's words to the sheriff's virgin teen daughter, now his own, had unraveled and rewoven the fabric of their lives, leaving them emotionally stirred, forever changed by the dark mysteries of the Wild West. And as they rode out together under a new sun, the wind carried their story onward, a legend whispered for generations, reminding all that in the heart of darkness, love can bloom like a desert flower after rain, fierce, resilient, and unbreakable.